welcome to Whispers of Ink. I'm Machado de Assis, and now I will read one of my stories.
Let's start with the book Diana, which is part of my novels collection. Chapter 1. Alberto and Luis stood on Raus do Ouvidor Street in Rio de Janeiro on a certain day in March 1868. Each had a servant with him, carrying his luggage. Luis. Alberto. What's going on? What time did you get here? I couldn't come earlier. I just arrived from the train station. And you? Are you coming from Minas or leaving for there? I'm neither coming nor going to Minas. I'm heading to Rio Grande. The ship is about to leave. Such a sudden change. That's how it has to be. This must be the devil's doing. If I had known, I would have come sooner. I'll write to you from there. Goodbye. Goodbye. After hugging each other, the two friends parted ways. One went to a boarding house, the other toward Praia dos Mineiros beach. As Alberto walked, he began to think, what the devil is making Luis rush off to Rio Grande like this? That guy must have lost his mind. Sometime later, Alberto received a letter from Porto Alegre, written by his friend Luis. Luis to Alberto, dear friend, I'm only writing now, because only now do I have a few minutes free. If you were one of those sensitive types I've met before, I'd give you another reason, probably a made-up one, to calm your worries and comfort your heart. But I prefer to tell the truth. You know me, and I know you. So here it is. You want to know why I left for Rio Grande so suddenly? It was something simple. I inherited some money. I found out my godfather had died and left me a large sum in his will. This money will put me above the struggles of life. What do you think of that? Isn't it like a bowl of manna from heaven? I always told you I believed in my luck. I always knew I wouldn't become rich just by being a small-town lawyer. But I can already hear you thinking to yourself, okay, he inherited something. That I get, but why would he have to go collect it himself? That's what I find odd. Let me answer your thought. I could have given someone power of attorney and stayed comfortably in court, waiting for the money left to me by that dearly missed godfather to reach my hands. But I didn't do that because of a clause my late godfather included in his will. The clause says, this inheritance will only be handed over to my godson Luis, after he personally discovers, by his own effort, a secret kept in a certain house in Pelotas. You must understand that, being in court, I couldn't possibly uncover a secret hidden in Pelotas. That's why I boarded a ship as soon as I received the news. Many times I've told you about this godfather of mine, how unusual and strange he was. When I read the condition, I became curious to find out what new eccentricity the old man had dreamed up. And so, I left. I hadn't yet gone to Pelotas, but I made sure to find out which house it was, and who used to live there. People told me it was my godfather's property, and had been empty for 5 years. That sharpened my curiosity. Clearly, there's a mystery here. What surprises me most is that the clause doesn't say exactly where in the house the secret is. Is it in the living rooms, in the bedrooms, in the backyard, in the ceiling, or under the floor? I don't know. But the inheritance is worth the effort, and I've got the strength and determination to finish this mission. In preparing to leave in a few days, equipped with tools and accompanied by my loyal Gocho. I'll keep you updated on everything that happens. Farewell. Don't be lazy, write to me. Alberto read and reread the letter. He smiled at the idea that Luis had fallen into a mystery straight out of a novel. Alberto knew that the lawyer's godfather was a man of strange habits, part of that long line of odd characters found in every race and every country. Luis and Alberto were two young lawyers who had become close friends. Luis, a provincial man by nature, liked to say he was just another small-town lawyer. Had studied law in São Paulo and moved to Rio de Janeiro, hoping for success. But after a full year in the city, he hadn't found fame or fortune. The money he brought with him was slowly disappearing, and so the inheritance from his godfather came at just the right time. Alberto was from Rio, but in many ways, he and Luis were alike. Both were lawyers, both unknown, both without much money. They'd even gone to the same law school in São Paulo. The only real difference between them, that inheritance had belonged to Luis, not Alberto. Alberto had traveled inland to Minas Gerais to gather detailed information for a legal case. As for how they met, well, you've already read about that earlier. Alberto didn't reply to Luis' last letter because he wasn't sure where his friend was. Was he in Porto Alegre? Or maybe in Pelotas? Instead of guessing, he decided to wait for news from Luis. But no letter ever came. After 2 whole months of silence, Alberto took action. He wrote 1 letter and made 2 copies. One went to Porto Alegre, the other to Pelotas. Wherever Luis was, one of those letters would find him. This was what Alberto wrote. Alberto to Luis, in writing now because I've waited long enough for your reply and heard nothing. I've sent this letter twice, 1 to each city. Wherever you are, I hope this finds you. To be honest, I think you're in Pelotas. And I imagine your silence has something to do with your search for that strange secret left behind by your late godfather. I always knew he was an odd man, but this is something else entirely. I can't even guess what he was thinking. Maybe that's the point. Secrets are meant to stay hidden until the time is right. Whatever it is, I hope you'll keep me updated if you can. Let me know how your search is going. And when the moment comes, tell me what this secret really is, the one that holds the key to your inheritance. A secret locked away for 5 years. What could possibly be inside? Alberto leaned back in his chair, staring at the blank page. There was something strange going on, something he couldn't quite explain. He dipped his pen into the ink and began to write. You're probably involved in something mysterious, he wrote. Be careful not to run into some bizarre German fantasy. Who knows? Maybe your godfather had dealings with the devil. He paused. That sounded ridiculous. I'm sorry. Forget I said that. Anyway, write to me. Incurious like a child. Tell me everything. And don't stop being my friend just because we're apart. He finished both letters, signed them carefully, and walked to the post office himself. After sending them, he waited. Days passed. Then, one morning, a letter arrived from Luis. It read, Luis to Alberto, it's a secret, and not just any secret, but a devilish one. But no, it's not what you're thinking. The mystery about the godfather hasn't been solved yet, mainly because I haven't gone to Pelotas. Don't think I can't go away. Can. But something is holding me back. What is it, you ask? Read on. It's an angel. Yes, an angel disguised as a woman. Or maybe she's the devil herself. Either way, she has turned my world upside down and made my heart a complete ruin when it comes to every other feeling I've ever known. I am in love, Alberto. Truly in love. The first time I saw her was at night. All my memories of her are under moonlight. That's why I gave her a symbolic name, Diana. As I was saying, I met her for the first time one Friday night, a night full of moonlight, charm, and magic. She looked beautiful, like the moon itself crossing the sky, calm and soft, bringing love, inspiration, poetry. Since that night, I've been lost. You know how love begins, it hits you suddenly. At that moment, I felt as if the angel who writes my life story in heaven, yes, I believe there are angels who do that, added the name Diana to the chapter on love. Diana. Do you even understand how beautiful she is? How enchanting, how captivating, how irresistible. You wouldn't know. Poor thing, stuck in that city of mud and boring routines, trapped by dullness and dirt. But here, yes, here I live with this seraph, this light, this life, this poetry. I reread everything I had written so far, and almost tore the letter up. I guess you're wondering if I've gone crazy or fallen into some kind of silly romantic trap. But don't believe anything other than this. I'm in love. Love is the word that created everything, as one poet once said. Let me tell you how it all started, how I saw her, and fell for her completely. Back then, I used to visit Major O, a distant relative of mine. He was a good old man with beautiful daughters and a warm home. Every evening, I'd go there around 8 and stay until midnight. During those visits, I often heard people talk about the widow Caldas, but I never paid much attention. Her name would come up, and I'd just let it pass like background noise. One night, I arrived earlier than usual. The Major's daughters told me they were expecting the widow Caldas for tea. I asked who she was since I didn't know her. They explained that she was the young widow of a man from the north who had moved there about a year before and passed away 5 months ago. She had been sick ever since I started visiting and hadn't been able to come to the house. But now she was feeling better and would be joining us for the first time since she recovered. We didn't say much more about it. A little later, we were all sitting outside in the garden, near the gate that opened onto the street. In the distance, I saw 2 white figures walking toward us. It was the widow and her mother. The girls got up quickly to greet them, and I followed out of politeness. I had no idea that this woman, this widow Caldas, was about to change my life forever. The moonlight was soft and clear, making everything glow gently. As I approached her, and our eyes met for the first time, something inside me shifted. I couldn't look away from her gaze, and she didn't look away from mine either. Everything seemed perfectly set for this moment to decide my fate. The night was one of the most beautiful ones you could imagine in Rio de Janeiro. We talked, we drank tea, and at midnight, the Major, his daughters, and I walked the 2 women back to their house. Diana'll call her nothing. Elsa seemed to feel something too. She wasn't indifferent to the way I looked at her. Not at all. Also, She seemed moved, touched. As for me, I don't know if I said the right things that night. Since then, I've seen her 10 times, always at night. Imagine if the impression made at night could for diets actually grown stronger with time. By the 5th night, I couldn't hold back anymore. I looked for a moment when I could talk to her alone. And I told her, in an indirect way, how I felt. Diana either felt the same or it was just my imagination, but what's certain is that she said some things that, although indirect, were quite clear. Take this example from our conversation. I said, I wish I had a widowed heart. Why? She asked. Because widowed hearts find comfort, I replied. Ah, and she sighed. Clear enough, isn't it? Oh, I think I'm saying something wild, but forgive me, you who understand love and know my heart in these matters. What I can promise you is that I've never loved like this before, and no woman has ever claimed to own my heart the way this one does. Who would have said, my dear Alberto, that coming in search of fortune and a secret, I'd end up taking a woman other secret and another fortune? Don't be surprised by my words. I'm ready to marry Diana, no matter what happens. It's crazy passion. Anyway, the ship is about to leave, and I can't wait any longer to send this letter. Farewell. In a few days, I'll go to Pelotas to discover what secret my godfather left behind. Listen, maybe it's buried treasure. Perhaps happiness wants to protect me all at once now. Farewell. A month passed between this letter and the third one sent by Luis to his friend Alberto. You and I will now witness the events the lawyer described in that third letter. To do that, let's move to Porto Alegre, to Luis' house, 28 days after the second letter. The love between Luis and Diana, let's keep using the name he gave her, was going wonderfully well. Luis woke up that morning with the kind of joy that only comes when something big is about to happen. He felt like a bird flying free in summer skies. The plan was clear. He would go to Diana's house, ask for her hand in marriage, and hope her mother would say yes. Diana had told him the day before that she loved him, and even gave him permission to talk to her mom. So here he was, getting dressed carefully, putting on his best cologne, and preparing himself for what might be the most important conversation of his life. He arrived at her house early, 2 hours earlier than planned. It was only 10 o'clock, and the meeting was set for noon. He thought about going back to wait somewhere else, but then he saw the garden. Something pulled him in. For a moment, he considered sitting there quietly until it was time. He hesitated, unsure. But since the gate was open, he walked in. Every step he took made noise on the gravel path, and that worried him. What if someone heard him? What if they opened the window and saw him? That would ruin everything. Then he spotted a little green shelter made by 4 trees growing close together. It looked perfect. He walked over and sat down on a stone bench under its shade. The house was quiet. All the windows were closed. Everyone inside still seemed to be sleeping. Luis knew Diana liked to wake up late, but he hadn't expected her to still be in bed at 10 in the morning. It was a cold day, and it had rained the night before. Still, he waited. He took off his gloves, put them in his pocket, and reached for a cigarette. He lit it slowly, sat back, and began to smoke. Anyone who saw him might think he was just relaxing, not waiting to change his life forever. In 2 hours, if everything went well, he could be a fiancé. Louis sat there, thinking, his mind drifting between past and future. When a man is about to propose to a woman, it's natural he should reflect on such things. But Louis didn't just think he dreamed. He wandered far into the fields of memory and imagination. The past was a hard one, lonely, full of struggles, short on love and long on need. It had been a painful fight between survival and the soul's desires. And yet, by some twist of fate, he now stood free from that life. He could finally look forward to love and money, two blessings he had once thought impossible. The future, then, was bright. In his mind, he already pictured what he would do with Diana and the inheritance. There was still one secret left to uncover: whether she truly loved him, or if her fortune was the real prize. Either way, he would be rich, and that suited him just fine. As he daydreamed, he suddenly remembered his friend back in Rio de Janeiro. It hit him that he hadn't written in months. He didn't want anyone to think he was ungrateful. As soon as this meeting ended, he promised himself he'd sit down and write a letter. The mail ship left the next day, so he needed to hurry. But for now, all he could do was wait. And waiting made the time crawl. He smoked 3 cigars, each one shorter than the last, as if trying to burn away the minutes. 20 times he checked his watch. The hands moved like they were stuck in slow motion, like a man dying. He got up, paced around, and peeked through the bushes. The windows were still closed. Were they still asleep? Or had they gone out? That question brought a sharp pain to his chest. If they had gone out, it would mean everything was ruined. Then, footsteps. Slow ones, crunching softly on the gravel path. He turned quickly. 2 women walked in the garden, both in dresses. His heart leapt. He assumed it was Diana and her mother. Probably they had just risen from bed and were taking an early walk to build their appetite. He remembered Diana once telling him how she loved to do that every morning. She had kept that habit for months, she said, and it gave her strength. So there he stood, waiting, hoping, imagining. The moment was near, and though he tried to stay calm, his nerves betrayed him at every tick of the clock. He thought to himself, better this way. If they see me here all of a sudden, it will be one more proof of how much I love Diana. He held his breath so no one could sense him nearby. He wanted to appear like the hero in a novel who arrives just in time, warned by some secret note. The 2 women were drawing closer and closer. Luis waited until they were almost right in front of him before stepping out. But first, he wanted one last look at the woman who had captured his heart. Carefully, he pushed aside some leaves to get a better view. His eyes fixed on the opening between the branches. At that exact moment, the 2 passed by. Luis let out a cry and stepped back in shock. The women, startled, ran toward the arbor. But Diana, as soon as she recognized the young man, turned and ran straight home. Only the old woman remained face to face with Luis. What did his cry mean? It was the sound of a dream shattered in an instant. The Diana he had imagined for so many days, the young, beautiful, enchanting woman who had captivated the lawyer's heart, was nothing like he thought. She was pale, plain, no longer young, and completely lacking charm. All her beauty had been made up, carefully painted on day after day, with the patience of someone trying hard to look good Louise, had only ever seen her at night. Because despite her efforts, Diana never wanted to show herself under daylight. Even then, he had believed in her charm. But now, under the clear light of morning, without any help from makeup or shadows, walking through the enclosed garden in total confidence, believing no one would come to visit at that hour, wasn't just unattractive. She was truly ugly. It's easy to imagine how deeply disappointed Louis felt. That scream had been the voice of dying love. Diana's elderly mother saw him and looked a bit confused. It seemed like she knew about her daughter's tricks. But since it wasn't her secret being discovered, she managed to speak to the young man with a smile, not hiding her surprise at finding him there. Louis said he had come to visit and had been waiting for the agreed time. The old woman invited him inside, but he excused himself, explaining the loud cry had been caused by a sudden pain. Then he politely took his leave. Louis walked out of the house with his head spinning. He didn't know where he was going, his steps slow and unsure, like someone lost in a fog. It wasn't heartbreak exactly what he felt was deeper than that. The love he had thought he carried in his chest had been for someone who didn't exist. The woman he saw under the soft light of candles and moonlight was not the same one standing before him in daylight. Now, all he felt was confusion, disappointment, and something close to shame. As he walked, he tried to make sense of what had just happened. Maybe, he thought, some feelings are warnings we should pay more attention to. If he hadn't waited in the garden that night, he hadn't seen her face again in the morning, might have married her without ever knowing the truth. That thought made him shiver. He arrived home still deep in thought. Before he could finish reflecting on everything, his servant entered the room. "Sir," the man said, "when do we leave for Pilotus?" "Now," Luis answered simply. Sometime later, Alberto sat in Rio de Janeiro, reading the third letter he had received from Luis since his trip began. "Dear Alberto, this letter will reach you only days before I do. I am now in Porto Alegre, getting ready for the final part of my journey. I could wait until I see you in person to tell you everything that's happened since my last letter was it really so long ago. But I can't hold it in any longer. You probably think he'll arrive in Rio married to the beautiful Diana, right? Wrong. In coming back alone, just as I left. And yes, I will explain why. I finally saw her in daylight. Until then, I had only seen her at night, lit by candlelight or moonlight. What a difference. From angel to dragon, from dream to nightmare. She was not ugly in a simple way, no. She was truly, shockingly plain. Night and shadow had played their trick well. When I realized the truth, I thanked God for opening my eyes before it was too late. I'll tell you more when we meet, but let me say this. My discovery was like Columbus landing on new land. Except I found something completely different in old truth hiding behind beauty. Broken-hearted and wiser, I decided to travel to Pilotus. But there's more to this story. Let me tell you what happened next. I reached Pilotus and went to visit a house I hadn't entered in over 5 years. It had been closed for so long it smelled of dust and silence. It took several days to clean and prepare the place just enough to bring someone inside. Finally, when everything was ready, I returned with my servant, determined to uncover what I had come so far to find. I made sure to check the walls carefully, tapping them to see if they were hollow and might hide something that could be the secret my godfather had mentioned. But there was nothing. I set a date and started our search. I turned the whole house upside down. At first, I dug into the floor, but after days of hard labor, I became certain there was no secret hidden there. Then I went back to the walls. Even though I had already checked them before, maybe I had missed something. No luck. At one point, I even thought the secret might be behind the oil painting of my godfather hanging on the wall. But again, nothing. I moved on to the ceiling, removing board by board, spending many long days searching. In the end, I found absolutely nothing. Not in the walls, not on the floor, not on the ceiling, not in the backyard nowhere. Then a painful idea struck me. My godfather had always been eccentric. What if his greatest oddity was making me search for a secret that didn't exist, just to teach me a lesson about greed or foolishness? It was very possible, and the thought shook me deeply. But once the shock passed, I returned to my search with renewed effort. Everything I tried failed. I admit I felt like ending my own life. Still, the truth remained. I had found nothing. The secret of my godfather had been a joke. And now, wherever he was in eternity, I imagined him laughing at me. I decided to return to Porto Alegre right away. I wouldn't wait for any reward, and I would go back to court to restart my career as a lawyer. While we were packing our bags, I noticed among the items my servant had wrapped the portrait of my godfather. "Why did you bring this?" I asked. "I don't know exactly," the servant replied. Suddenly, an idea came to me. I took the painting from his hands and, using a knife similar to those used by gauchos, I opened up the frame. I reached into the box and pulled out a folded piece of paper. My hands shook as I held it. Could this be the secret I had been looking for? Slowly, I opened the paper and struggled to read the faded ink. The words were barely visible, worn away by time. Do you want to know what it said? It read, "Advice to my godson: never trust appearances." If only I had known this secret before I saw Diana. At last, I now held both a great fortune and a hard-earned lesson. It had cost me dearly. See you soon.
Thank you for listening so far. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like our channel and click the bell to be notified whenever a new book is read. Have you heard of Machado de Assis? Machado de Assis, born in Rio de Janeiro in 1839, is considered one of the greatest writers in Brazilian literature and a master of psychological realism. He was a novelist, poet, playwright, and short story writer whose works explore the complexities of human behavior with irony, subtlety, and deep introspection. Among his most famous novels are Dom Casmurro, which questions truth and memory, and the posthumous memoirs of Brás Cubas, a satirical narrative told by a deceased man. Machado's literature often reflects the contradictions of Brazilian society, addressing issues like race, class, power, and identity in a sophisticated yet accessible style. Despite being born into poverty and facing racial prejudice, Machado de Assis rose to become the president of the Brazilian Academy of Letters and a symbol of literary excellence. His sharp wit and profound observations about society and the human soul make his works timeless and universally relevant. Today, he is recognized not only as a Brazilian icon, but also as a world-class author whose legacy continues to influence generations of writers and thinkers. Machado de Assis shows us that literature can be both elegant and critical, intimate and universal, humorous and profound. His stories remain as powerful and thought-provoking today as they were more than a century ago. Machado is a treasure of world literature, and through his voice, we discover the infinite layers of the human experience.